Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this is going to be a Pride Month vlog. The drama last week was that I was running out of battery and had to buy a new one, which was half price on the internet from what it would have been in person to get it at Best Buy, which is the only store that had it locally. But it arrived today, so I'm now free to film as much as I want. And so right now I'm gonna go through a list of prompts for the 2 readathons that I'm taking part in and tell you about books that I've already read, which I've only read 2 books so far that fit this prompt, that fit the prompts, or books that I'm planning on reading to fit the prompts. I recognize that the lighting on my face is not great right here, but most of the focus is going to be on the insert I'm going to put in anyway. So let's go. Where did it go? Here we go. So first is the Queer Disabled Books Bingo, which is mostly taking place on Twitter. And it is created by Bhavya at Bhavya_reads. And it has a bingo board that you should see on the screen. And I'm going to read off at least some of these prompts, maybe all of them. There's a lot of prompts. There's like 25 of them. So the first one is read a book written by a queer disabled author. The difficulty there is whether or not you don't always know whether someone's queer or not. I have read Middle Game by Shauna McGuire, who's autistic, which is a disability. So I'm not sure about counting that, but it depends on how much I want to finish out this bingo and what other books I read. Then read a book with a queer disabled MC. Oh, I'm currently reading Bianca Torre is Afraid of Everything, and Bianca Torre has severe anxiety and is trans, so that would count for that. Read a book with more than one queer disabled character. I don't think anyone else in that book is disabled and queer. I'll have to think about that one. And then a lot of the rest of these are just reading a specific identity plus who's disabled MC. So like read a book with an intersex disabled MC, read a polyam romance book with a disabled MC. Then for the Queer Lit Readathon, which is hosted by Kathy and Rogan, I'll put their YouTube handles below, and it's the guest host for this year or this round is Rachel of Reads with Rachel, and prompts for this are a banned book, which I'm planning on reading Prince and Knight, which is a picture book. The next is to read one of the group reads, which I've already read both of the group reads. They're very good, but I'm not really in the mood for a reread of either of them, so I'm going to skip that one. For Trans Joy, Different Kinds of Fruit by Kyle Lukoff. I've already read like 3 or 4 things by Kyle Lukoff because he's quite prolific. So I think this middle grade will be quite joyful. Then M-Spec, which is like bi, pan, that kind of thing. The Lost Girls, which has a bisexual vampire main character. So that's for historical fiction or nonfiction. Oh, This Rebel Heart fits that. Come on, show the cover. It's set shortly after World War II in Budapest. The author is trans. I'm not sure about the characters. Oh, and the author and main character are Jewish. Then a host rec, which I'll have to think about that one. I think I'm gonna skip the crime one. Wait, no. Bianca Torre fits that because it's about the main characters trying to solve a murder and like a criminal conspiracy, so that does actually fit. NB, MC, or author. The main character of Bianca Torre is also NB. Intersectional, I think Jewish and trans would count for that. This Rebel Heart. Folklore. I just bought a book, it should be in my most recent haul, that's like new queer fairy tales. I think that would work very well. It's like Other Ever Afters or something. So that could work for folklore, I think. Short stories, I might skip because I don't always like those. Sapphic, Bianca Torre is Sapphic, The Lost Girls is Sapphic, and I'm currently reading She Drives Me Crazy, which is Sapphic. And then Queer Friends. I think Different Kinds of Fruit might have Queer Friends in it. And then Continued is to continue a series or to continue on with an author you've read before. And Kyle Lukoff counts for that because I read like 3 of his books for the Trans Rights Readathon. So yeah, that's what I'm planning. I am planning on going to Used Bookstore today, and I would like to film it. I hate filming in public, but this bookstore I've been to before has a lot of stacks that you can kind of disappear in, so I can sneakily take out my camera when no one's around. So look forward to that. It's called Second Look Books, I think. So whenever I leave the doggos that I'm dog sitting for a significant amount of time, which I do about once a day, I make up these Kong things, and into them go one little treat each, a handful of frozen blueberries, and then some scoops of peanut butter, specifically from the pups jar, not from the people jar. And that entertains them for a while and makes them feel better about being left alone. Okay, so while I was there in the bargain section, my favorite section, I did pick up some things. I picked up the Cousins O'Dwyer trilogy by Nora Roberts. That's what they look like all together. They look really nice. And they were $1 each. And that's one that my mom has recommended to me, but I've never gotten around to it, so maybe now I'll get around to it. Not this month, but another month sometime. Yeah. So it's thunderstorming outside. So all the animals are inside, and I finished I Hope We Choose Love, A Trans Girl's Notes from the End of the World by Kai Cheng Tom. And this was recommended by Sim back for the Trans Rights Readathon. And it is a collection of essays and also a collection of poetry. In between each essay is a section of poetry. And I really like the poetry sections. And it's about neoliberalism and queer community and social media and being trans and Chinese Canadian and stuff like that, and I think it was really well done, and I gave it 5 stars. So this morning I settled down and played some video games, and when my Switch ran out of battery I switched to reading, and I finally finished Bianca Torre is Afraid of Everything by Justine Bucella Winans. This is about a young person with anxiety who figures out they are non-binary during the course of the book, and starts using they them pronouns, starts out using she her pronouns, and also who likes girls. And they are a peeping Tom sort of person. They don't peep on people changing or anything, but they do peep at their neighbors who have open windows and like see them watching TV with their cats. And I really like the conclusion of this. It was weird,
but fun, and I think handled in a really good way. But my favorite parts were the characters and the friend relationships, all the many platonic relationships. There are good family relationships where the teenage protagonist actually asks their parents for help and like has support from their parents and from their best friend's parents, and I really liked how that all went. So 5 stars. I just found out that there's a Two-Spirit powwow going on in the park today. That somehow when I was looking up Pride events in Spokane didn't see that until today. So I'm gonna like go. So there may be footage, there may not be, but I will report back. So I did actually go. I looked it up and saw that filming is generally frowned upon at these things, so I didn't film. But this is a little footage of walking through the park on the way to the powwow, which was in the middle of the park. I stayed for 2 jingle dress dances and 2 fancy shawl dances. The regalia was beautiful, and there were lots of different styles, and the dancing was really cool to watch. I've been wanting to go to a powwow for a while, since I've been reading about them in some books. It was really cool, and the MC talked about celebrating Pride, and there were lots of people with rainbows there. Pretty sure I saw a drag queen, and on the way back to my car, I got complimented on my outfit, which is this, and also on my purse with the raccoon on it. This is actually a red panda, but I knew what they meant. Yeah, that was really cool. I also got some footage of the street where part of the parade is going to be, where they painted the progress flag on it. Yeah, I'm really happy to have gone. I was very brave. I'm very proud of myself because I was very nervous because I've never been to one before, and also any event makes me nervous, especially when I'm by myself. So I did good. It was very spread out. It was on the side of a hill that sloped down and had the stage at the bottom, and so there was plenty of space. I was able to stand at the back and watch with like 20 feet between me and the closest people. So I felt comfortable precautions wise there. I am nervous about the parade because I feel like it's gonna be crowded. I'm gonna like see if I can stand at the edges and still see anything. But if it's too crowded, I'll just look at it from afar and then go home. So it's Saturday. This is the outfit. The arm warmers might be too hot, but I'll decide when I get there. This is gonna be completed with a mask and sunglasses, so there's no point in wearing makeup. But my hat has some rainbow and other pride pins on it, and the I Love Cats pin, and I've got my asexual dragon shirt and my other pair of rainbow socks. So yeah, I hope this goes well. Well, I did it. I was nervous, but not as nervous as I was for the powwow. But I've been to parades before. There was like a line of people that were clustered together right in front, but if you stood like behind them, you had plenty of room and you could still see as long as you were standing. So wasn't too bad precautions wise. Wore my mask, and I feel like it was pretty safe. There were many reasons I came back before it was over. One, my feet started hurting pretty early on. When my back started hurting, I thought I should probably head back. I parked about 5 blocks away, getting quite overheated, even though for June it's quite nice and cool. It's like 75, but it is muggy. I really enjoyed myself. That you didn't see, there were some people who I believe to be sex workers. on a float of the pole dancing variety, and of the twirl around in a hoop variety. And there were people who I think were from the leather community, and I think some people from the kink community, and some furries, and then there were like groups like against mass incarceration and Planned Parenthood, and Asian queer people had a group they were in, and there were several drag queens who went by on floats and walking, and yeah, lots of people with flag capes and with flag fans, and yeah, it was just really cool, and I'm really glad I got to go. Now I'm gonna go get some fast food. I got drive-through Taco Bell, if you're wondering, and then I worked on editing this video for like an hour. And now I think it's late enough in the afternoon I can justify taking a nap until dinner time. So it's the evening and I'm waiting for it to be 2 hours away from the time when my uncle is getting home so that I can abandon the dogs and start driving home. I could stay with my brother in town. I thought about doing that, but I was sleepy on the drive up here anyway, so I think I'm gonna be sleepy no matter what time of day I drive home. So I got myself a coffee, which I don't usually drink, and which usually keeps me up fairly well when I do drink them. And I'm gonna have that on the way and shouldn't have a problem. If I do have a problem, I will pull over at a town and take a 10-minute nap. According to my parents, those work really well when you're having problems being too sleepy to drive. But the reason I picked up the camera is I'm watching Wedding Season on Netflix, which is about an Indian American woman whose family is pressuring her to get married, and Indian American man in the same situation, and so they're fake dating. And it's gotten to the point where they do that thing that they do in movies where they look at each other and you know they're gonna kiss, and then they kiss, and it's just like, that always feels so awkward to me and just so weird, and I don't get it, which just reinforces that I'm too asexual for this. But I do recommend the movie. It's very funny so far, so that should also help me stay hyped up for the drive. So I've made it to Ritzville. That's basically the halfway point. There's slightly more than halfway to go, about an hour and a half, and I don't feel the slightest bit bored. I did finish We've Always Been Here, and I'll review it for you in the morning. So, We Have Always Been Here. Very interesting. The author lived a very interesting life. It goes through her childhood and how she was raised in a very patriarchal family, some bad things that happened to her in her childhood, and then it goes through her growing up and having a first boyfriend, and eventually realizing that she's queer, and eventually coming out as queer and exploring her sexuality and the different relationships that she's had. She had some polyamorous relationships. She had some long-term and some short-term relationships. Coming out as queer affected her relationship with her family and with her faith, and how she started a photo project to show queer Muslim people. So as with most memoirs, I gave it 5 stars. Okay, so I haven't filmed much the last 3 days. I filmed a little review on Sunday, and then I didn't film any talking to the camera bits on Monday and Tuesday, but I did film a little bit, so I'm going to explain that footage now. Basically, I found a new hobby, and that's all I want to do. I'm scrapbooking, and I'm starting with the photos that my mom already had printed out, or that had gotten passed down through the family. So I'm doing cat pictures, a few old vacation pictures, my sister's graduation pictures, and a bunch of old family pictures. So I'm going to show you the cats, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I'm gonna get a few more craft supplies for it this morning. Yeah, what prompted this is, one, I'm kind of out of a creative outlet because everything I've been doing creatively has been going on to my shop lately, which isn't really good for your mental health. So I'm gonna do something that's just for me and my family and doesn't like require any outside approval, so I think that will help a lot. And also I watch Tom Scott vlogs, and Tom has been doing a scrapbook for a long time and is currently still working on it, and kind of talks about how he wants to be able to remember things, and it's hard to remember things without anything to attach it to. Like currently, a lot of my memories are attached to physical objects rather than photos, and I'd like to be able to let go of some of my physical objects and just use photos because they're a lot more compact. So the new photos I'm going to get are mostly going to be vacation ones, but a few daily living ones as well, and more photos of my cats, of course, because that's very important. So that was Monday and Tuesday, and on Tuesday I went over to one of my aunt's houses where her horse has had a baby, and it's a very cute baby, so I filmed that. So in the last 3 days of the vlog, I also finished 3 more books. I finished Not Your Sidekick, which is about a Chinese Vietnamese American girl who, well, she lives in the North American continent. This is in the future, and all the countries have changed a little bit, and there are superheroes everywhere. Her parents are superheroes of the lesser category, so they're not like super powerful, but they are in charge of keeping her little town free from supervillains or regular level villains. She doesn't have any powers, and she's upset about this because it makes her feel less than. She decides to get a job to look good on college applications, an internship, and the place she goes to work is evidently for the local supervillains, secretly. And so there's a whole story from there. I liked the characters a lot. I liked the relationships. The world building was kind of so-so. It didn't make a lot of sense, but superhero worlds never do, so you kind of gotta just suspend your disbelief a lot in that kind of story. Our main character is bisexual. One of her 2 best friends is trans. She has a crush on a girl as the story starts. A downside is that there were multiple secret identities of a few people, of like super villains and superheroes that were local to her area, and it was very obvious to me who their secret identities were, and it took until they revealed themselves basically for the main character to figure it out. So it made the main character look not very good at thinking things through. She's 15 and she lives in a world of superheroes. You think she'd be better at figuring out who secret identities. So that was the only really irritating part for me. I hope there's a sequel because it ended with some things not being wrapped up. So I look forward to that if there is one, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read A Little Light Mischief because I'm really in a historical romance mood. Romance in general, but specifically I want historical romance. This is a novella about 120 pages, and it's a maid and a lady's companion who fall in love, and it's really cool. I really like how they are taken care of by this other woman who is both of their employer, and I look forward to continuing the connected sort of series of queer historical romances that this author has written. Then I read Several People Are Typing by Calvin Kasulk, who is a trans author, and the main character, I guess you would call him, is bi. His name is Gerald, and there's another character who's gay, and this is about Gerald getting sucked into Slack, which is a common like office digital communication tool, and it's very weird, and there's some, it's kind of a light horror type of a thing, not gory at all, but just creepy and weird. I really like stories that take place within chats, so like technically You Started It, I think is the name, and a lot of catfishing on Catnet is within, it shows a lot of chats, online chats, and I really like that format. I think it's really fun to see the way people talk to each other really casually like that, and this was really fun for that reason, and because I ended up really liking Gerald and a few of the other characters. So 5 stars. So thank you so much for watching. That was this week's vlog. There will be another one next week, and I will see you in the next video. If you'd like to leave an emoji, how about a dress for a little light mischief? Okay, so in editing I realized I never reviewed She Drives Me Crazy, which I finished early in the week. I listened to it via audiobook, and it was pretty good. There's a lot of teen angst and silliness. It's about a girl who plays basketball and a girl who is a cheerleader, and the girl who plays basketball has recently had a breakup with another bad breakup with another basketball player who's now on an opposing team, and is very much in her feels about it, and decides to fake date this cheerleader to get back, to make her ex jealous and to give herself social capital. And I actually really liked how good the communication was between these two characters, how they handled several issues. Yeah, there were miscommunications and difficulties, but never was there a purposeful withholding of information, and they worked out their miscommunications fairly quickly because they made the effort to figure out what was going on with the other person. So I really enjoyed that, and I gave She Drives Me Crazy 4 stars. Bye!